Hi A3, this is reading lesson 102. We will read the story, answer some questions together today, and then you will get to do this worksheet page. You will follow along with me as we do this together today. Okay, attack on Boone's fort. I want you to frame the word fort. Yeah, that word makes me very happy. In our house, we love to build some forts. Forts is a fun thing to do. Let me tell you a little bit about who we're going to read about today. Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone was an explorer and a frontiersman. He was born in Pennsylvania in 1734. He did not go to school, but he did learn to read and write. And when he was young, his family moved to North Carolina. And as he grew older, he became very interested in new lands that had not been settled. So he later sold his farm in North Carolina and moved with his wife and children to Kentucky. With the help of a group of men, he laid out the Wilderness Road. The fort and village Daniel Boone helped establish were named Boonesboro in honor of him. Today as we read, we'll read about stockades. And stockades, during the time of Daniel Boone, it was a fort that looked like a small village surrounded by a high wall. And the high wall was called a stockade. The stockade was made of logs that were pointed on one end. It was built so that the pointed ends of the logs extended high up into the air. And so today we will begin reading a story about Daniel Boone and his men as they defend a fort in the wilderness of Kentucky. So attack on Boone's fort. Our first chapter today will be 2 Tunnels. Read this out loud to yourself. Who do you think the man in the picture is? And what do you think Daniel is doing? I wonder what he's doing here in this picture down here. Read this to yourself out loud, please. As you're reading, what does Daniel notice about the river? Good. What did Daniel notice? Yeah, it said that the water was muddy, right? So how is the dirt getting into the river? Yeah, it says here that someone was throwing dirt into the river. Who do you think is throwing the dirt into the river? You think it might be Indians? We'll have to read to find out. The story begins in the middle of some action. So something's happening before we begin our story. What has been going on before our story begins? That's right. There has been some fighting between the men in the fort and the Indians. Do the quiet and muddy waters seem to bother Daniel? Yes, I think it does. He wonders why the fighting has stopped. He knows something isn't right. And he wonders where the dirt being thrown into the river is coming from. He doesn't like what he's seeing here. Where is Daniel as he watches the river? That's right, he's at the top of the stockade. Do you remember what we said a stockade was? Yeah, that's a high wall around a fort made to keep the enemy out. All right, let's read together. 2 Tunnels. It was quiet. The fighting had stopped. What was going on? From the top of the stockade, Daniel Boone could see the river. Something was not right. Just past the fort, Daniel could see muddy water in the river. Someone was throwing dirt into the river. Where was the dirt coming from? Daniel went up higher to see better. He did not like what he was seeing. We're going to go ahead and keep reading. The Indians were digging a tunnel from the riverbank at the fort. What will we do? Asked Daniel's men. We will dig a tunnel too. It will run under the cabins by the stockade. The Indian tunnel will have to run into it. Maybe we can stop them there. Daniel's men got busy on their tunnel, but the fighting started up again. Some men were digging, while other men were fighting. They worked day and night. Sometimes the Indians attacked at night. Sometimes they crept up to the fort and shot burning arrows into the fort. Oh my goodness. What are the Indians doing? That's right, they are digging a tunnel from the riverbank to the fort. What did Daniel decide to do about this problem? That's right, he wants to dig another tunnel, right? Why does Daniel want to dig this tunnel? Yeah, he wants to stop the Indians. And how will digging another tunnel help Daniel's men defeat the Indians? Well, I'm wondering if the Indians will not expect to run into Daniel's men inside the tunnel, and Daniel's men will be able to stop the Indians there. Do you think that this is a good plan? Thumb up or thumb down? What do you think? All right, well, let's read more to find out. We do have another question before we turn the page, though. Why don't the Indians wait until their tunnel is finished before attacking Daniel's men? And maybe they want to keep Daniel's men fighting so that Daniel's men will not have time to come up with a new plan, right? The Indians want to keep Daniel's men busy so they won't find out about their tunnel. And they want to win the battle any way possible, right? Let's turn the page. Good job. I want you to read this out loud to find out what problem the burning arrows are causing. What problem is caused by the burning arrows? That's right, they set the fort on fire. So what do Daniel and his men do to the flames? Yeah, they beat the flames with blankets. Why don't Daniel and his men use water to fight the fires? That's right, they don't have a lot of water, and they need the water they do have for what? For drinking. That's right. Were Daniel's men able to put the fire out? No. What makes you think so? The burning arrows were everywhere, and the flames went from roof to roof. I noticed it said that they prayed. Daniel and his men prayed. Can you frame that sentence? That's right. Daniel and his men prayed. What happened? How are their prayers answered? That's right. God sent rain. It rains and the fire was put out. And so what was their response? Yes, they thank God. When God answers our prayers, we thank Him and praise Him. Like we read about the story of Hannah last week. We praise Him for answering our prayers. How long did it say that it rained for? That's right. It rained all through the night. It rained through the next day. Okay, let's read this together. The men did not have a lot of water. They needed to save the water they had for drinking. So they beat the flames with blankets, but arrows were blazing everywhere, and the flames went from roof to roof. The fort was on fire. Daniel and his men prayed. And then it began to rain. The fire sputtered. The flames began to flicker and die. The happy men gave thanks to God. It rained through the night. It rained through the next day. Let's keep reading. Daniel went to check on the tunnel. The men had stopped digging. Quiet, Daniel whispered. Daniel waited in the tunnel. Daniel stood still. The men waited. They listened. Clink, clink. Frame that? That's in onomatopoeia. That's right. Onomatopoeia. is a noisy word. An onomatopoeia is a noisy word. Clink, clink, clink. What do you think is making that clink, clink, clink noise? Yeah, I think the Indians are still digging in the tunnel. And I'm sorry, it's saying chink, 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 not clink, clink, clink. Chink, chink, chink. Good. I think that Indians are digging there. Someone was digging. All right. So we'll see tomorrow in our next chapter what's going to happen. All right, let's take out our page. We're going to do some map fun together today. So you will need to take out some materials. You will follow along with me as I give you the directions. You will need a brown, a blue, and a green. Brown, blue, green. Okay, here we go. Color the fort brown. So find the fort and color it brown. Then draw one more Indian outside the fort. So I see one Indian here. Draw another Indian outside the fort. Today we're working on following oral directions. So you colored the fort brown, and you drew one more Indian outside the fort. Now, color the river blue. Color the river blue. And I see here is where they have us to do the blue river. Draw a horse near the river. Draw a horse near the river. And just do your best. Now do you see the trees? Draw two more trees. And after you draw two more trees, color the trees green. Let's check and make sure that you follow directions. You were to color the fort brown. Draw one more Indian outside the fort. Color the river blue. Draw a horse near the river. Draw two more trees and color the trees green. Good. We made a little map at the top, and then you'll answer these questions. You don't need to write it on the line, just circle the correct answer. Number 1, there are trees. Circle the number that tells you how many trees. Let's go to number 2. The fort is by the blue. Circle your answer. Number 3. There are by the fort. Circle what tells you what's by the fort. Number 4. The Indians will the fort. Circle the word that completes the sentence. The Indians will the fort. Number 5. There is a on the fort. Circle the word that completes the sentence. There is a on the fort. Then number 6. The fort is made of, and circle your answer. The fort is made of. Good, and then on the back side today for fun, you get to trace the path that the Indians will use to get to the Boone's fort. Like a little maze there. Right. Thank you. Good job.